One of the interesting about Docklands was it was actually extremely unambitious. The enterprise zone was laid out with streets which spelt for sort of industrial sheds, and that's what they thought an enterprise zone would be. And then J. Webb Travels turned up and said, "What about Canary Wharf?" And they went, "Oh, we never thought of that." And patently, they thought of a rather suburban kind of development of Docklands. And what's happened to them is a kind of suburban on steroids.
But London's square mile, the city, had for centuries dominated the world of finance. It was steeped in history and tradition, resistant to change. Until the mid-1980s, it was heavily regulated, and all trading took place on one single market floor. It was about as up-to-date as pounds, shillings and pence. New methods need vast trading floors, super powerful computers, above all, space. The city lacked that one necessity. It also lacked any affection for the upstarts next door in Docklands. It took an American entrepreneur to spot the doorway to the future.
And here was this incredible resource, cheek by jowl with the square mile. You didn't have to be much of a visionary to say, wait a minute. You got a problem here, there's a possible solution sitting there. Why don't we see if we can make it the solution?
He'd made millions for the finance empire of First Boston by building a new headquarters in rundown Manhattan. Charged to do the same in London, he ran into city conservatism.
He had the clear reputation of being an American swashbuckling developer of the sort that perhaps we hadn't traditionally seen in London. He was a one-off, complete one-off. He was hard driving, he was a degree arrogant.
I became regarded as the enemy. Then we got active opposition.
I was invited back to a board meeting at Credit Suisse First Boston in middle of March. And at the table, well, I didn't know at that time, was Ware Travelstead. He dominated the table because of his size. And so the debate went on for some time as to the project of a backup office. And Ware suddenly put his hand up and said, "But we're asking ourselves the wrong question. The question is, can we move our central office to the Isle of Dogs?" And there was an immediate chorus of, "No way." I parked up and said, "Hang on a minute. You couldn't move there unless there was something like 1 million square feet." By the end of June, it had moved from 1 million to about 2 million square feet. End of July, it was up to about 5 million square feet. I went to Chicago, to SOM offices in August 1985, and there on the wall was what was originally an 18 million square feet mini Manhattan on Thames. I'd persuaded the board, against all their instincts, to allow me to run with it.
What I think my colleagues found a little bit alarming was when the challenge went down that we're going to create Wall Street on the water and that we are going to displace the traditional role of the City of London. In other words, whatever Paul Reichman said later, Ware Travelstead's pitch was definitely, sorry chums, you're finished and we're going to recreate what you should be doing down here. It was a challenge.
And so they took a rather sort of patronizing view. But the moment it started to take shape, the view of the city changed, and they really went to great extents to defeat and to prevent it actually happening.
I don't think they had a clue, because once they got a clue, they did a 180-degree flip and started making all kinds of concessions and sites available in the square mile. London Wall, and you can bridge across streets, and oh yes, we know now you need big footprints, and they did not want Canary Wharf to be draining off any of their tenants.
I think where the competition sharpened to a degree was when it was decided on the part of Canary Wharf to start poaching tenants from city buildings, leaving the city buildings empty.
We weren't as successful in our poaching early on as we would have liked to have been.
I would have thought that most people now in the city recognize that if you hire gunslingers, then you're going to get a few shots fired and the atmosphere is going to hot up.
There was incredible pressure put on behind the scenes on every single tenant that we were trying to get to make a move, whether it was Nat West, whether it was Midland Bank.
He was a maverick, obviously, and a dealer, as it were, a dealer in architectural idea and image. he seemed very unlikely. I mean, everyone said, J. Webb Travelstead, what a dodgy guy. You know, he's never going to deliver a multi-billion-pound development. How's he going to get the money? Who's going to finance him, etc. And just Reg Ward's brilliance was just at that moment that where Travelstead looked completely iffy, he got hold of the Reichman brothers and introduced them to Margaret Thatcher, and the rest, as they say, is history.
The sadness was that Ware didn't survive that particular process.
Mr. Reichman, ladies and gentlemen, when I learned about this project, it seemed to me one of the most exciting that we had ever known.
In the end, unable to put the financial package together, Ware Travelstead sold out to Olympia and York, run by the Reichman brothers. His dream lived on, but it was the Reichmans who built it. Their Canadian company already had an enviable track record for rejuvenating derelict city areas around the world, and they had the money, so they got the nod from the most important lady in Britain.
We began this ambitious scheme, and people saw that it could work.